The Dark Cosmos presents I Caught an Unknown Space Virus That's Altering My Body. Written by Danny Rangel Nieto. Hey Creepypasta fans, it's Kira Rhodes. I'll be your narrator for tonight. Enjoy tonight's sci-fi horror story. Also, if you want to be a part of our next story, make sure to check out our Patron link in the description. And remember, stay cosmic. My name is Dr. Mary Ann Crain. After a lifetime of exhaustive and rigorous research and training, it is finally my honor to be the designated scientist on board the space station Hephaestus. I would say that, in the grand scheme of things, my job isn't very difficult. After all, I am passionate about my work, delighted to have these privileged resources, and in these trying times, anyone would jump at the opportunity to spend 6 peaceful months in the privacy and safety of a space station, isolated from the rest of our troubled humanity. My only contact with the rest of the species is back and forth messaging with a NASA station on Earth that take a full day to be delivered. I am completely alone, and it takes me 3 months to realize how awfully vulnerable I am too. Any threat would find me alone. Any danger I'll have to face alone. Whatever demon could sink its teeth into me and devour me whole without anybody noticing. Not a single soul would hear me scream, no matter how loud and desperately I could get. Even then, and I almost laugh thinking about it, I used to think I'd be happy here. At first, I felt lucky and free. This was a small planet all to myself. Then, why couldn't I get that little voice in the back of my head to shut up? Nobody was watching me. Then, why couldn't I shake off the feeling of a pair of eyes standing guard on every corner of the ship? Someday, everyone would watch me arrive back on Earth. All eyes will be on me, my body, my living quarters, the results of my experiments. What if they found the ship battered and untidy? What if they thought my method was messy and therefore my findings unreliable? What if I lost too much weight, gained too much weight, looked way older? It was almost unbearable expecting myself to handle these thoughts or attempt to banish them completely while focusing on the experiments in front of me. Even then, this shouldn't have happened. The accident wasn't my fault. The attack was unpredictable. At least, the first one had been. My job on board the Hephaestus is to manage and develop a series of experiments that could potentially revolutionize the possibilities of life in space. There are 2 main laboratories at the station. One of them is filled with plants, growing or dying, in several different containers. The other one was the same, but with animals, rats in this case. As life thrived or perished on the containers, I took notes, made necessary changes, killed and sustained more and more specimens, until it all backfired on me. It is now day 93 on the station. The routine check on the experiments is going perfectly well. There's not a lot of work in the laboratories today. One of the containers in the plant lab turned out to be thoroughly ruined, but according to protocol, I have to wait another day before disposing of the unlucky dead plant, modifying the conditions of the container, and planting a new one from the reserve to continue with the studies. I close and lock the doors behind me, following the protocol word by word, and make my way to the animal lab. This part of the job is slightly more difficult. On one hand, it can be more exciting, but simultaneously more traumatizing to witness. The little rodents in their containers are a nice distraction, and sometimes entertaining. But we are, after all, playing God here. Almost every single day, I wake up to handle the cadaver of a rat that couldn't handle the air conditions I put it in, the water with the wrong additions, the food with the imperfect proportions. It would only be one thing to know I'll have to live the rest of my life plagued with nightmares of stone-cold, lifeless rats piling up at the foot of my bed. But that's not all. Most days, the rats don't just fall asleep quietly, never to wake up again. No, the experiments might react in wildly different ways to the conditions forced onto them in the containers. I've seen it all, from hair loss to self-mutilation, unnatural amounts of vomit for such small creatures, puddles of blood, so big the animals would drown if they weren't already dead, little limbs falling off, mutilations and tumors and rashes and everything in between, until I have to force myself to close my eyes as I push the emergency button that violently empties and disinfects the container without my direct intervention. Now I understand why there was so much talk about morality, guilt, and conscience during our training. So, it's safe to say that every time I go into this laboratory, I go in prepared for the worst. But nothing could have prepared me for this. I enter the code on the touchpad beside the door, which slides open easily, but as soon as I set foot into the room, I flinch. A loud sound attacks my ears. An animalistic screech. High-pitched, rabid, and coming closer to me. Instinctively, I take a step back, but before I get to the hallway, something falls on my head. I scream. I scream loudly and unrestrained and flail my arms around me desperately. Whatever fell on me is heavy. It has sharp claws. It scratches my face and my nose is attacked with a rancid scent that makes me so nauseous I feel like I'm going to faint. I stumble backwards until my back hits the wall of the hallway, and I repeatedly knock my head against it, trying to get this thing off of me. But all I manage to do is make it descend my face and then latch onto my neck. Then, the bite. Oh my god, it's so painful I can barely comprehend it. It's not just a bite. This thing seems to be chewing on my neck. Tears start falling off of my eyes, and I can't even scream. My trembling hands reach the creature's body and squeeze. I'm too afraid to try and pull it away, fearing it would tear my whole throat off between its fangs. Maybe it's sheer displeasure, or the tiny monster is sated with the taste of my blood. But it lets go of my neck, squirms right out of my feeble hold on it, and jumps onto the floor, scurrying away from me. My vision is blurry. I'm paralyzed with terror. The pain is blooming in my neck and spreading to every nerve in my body. It kind of feels like I'm underwater. The assault on my body has shaken me to my core. Is my heart beating wildly, or on the edge of stopping altogether? Is there a ringing in my ears or an alarm going off on the ship? I need to get my brain to work. I need to be smart and quick. I have to get to the infirmary, assess the damage, do whatever I have to do to save myself. Anything. But I can barely move. I can't step away from the wall without losing my balance. I take one trembling step forward, then another. And then I start falling. Falling and falling into infinite and freezing cold darkness. I come back to my senses slowly, and I have no way to know how much time has passed. The first thing I do is take note of my surroundings. I know that nobody heard me screaming, and I know that there's nobody here that could have helped me, that could have cured my surely lethal wounds. And yet, I am breathing. My heart is beating. My brain is sending signals to all of my body, and I'm surprised to feel little to no pain. But one fact is undeniable among all. I am currently lying in a pool of my own blood, drenched from head to toe. It's cold. It's so cold. And the sound the puddle makes when I try to stand up is enough to finally make me empty my stomach. After a lot of struggles, I finally make it to the infirmary of the space station. The sight that welcomes me in the mirror is horrifying enough to tear a sob from my insides that burns my throat. I wail in front of the mirror. Tears slip from my eyes, and the strain makes the wounds on my neck leak a trail of deep red blood. It's not just a wound. There's an alarmingly large bump on the side of my throat. It's swollen, red, and turning on purple, with several bite marks that range from open wounds spilling blood to spots of yellowish pus, to some, surprisingly, already closed scars. And there's more. Whatever venom was in the system of that animal is now inside me, and my entire body is reacting. I look like I suddenly gained a few pounds. It's inexplicable. My cheeks are larger, my entire face feels heavier, and I can't believe my skin would expand like this in a matter of minutes. But it's when I examine my eyes that things take a turn for the worse. My eyes are bloodshot, but upon a closer look, I discover it's not simply a consequence of my crying. No, there's something wrong with them. The blood is taking over the white. And that's just the beginning. These changes in my body make me gasp. I struggle to breathe and start choking. But a great new shock is enough to make me recover, and I quickly recoil away from the mirror when I notice that my breath comes out in a small cloud of green smoke. When it catches the mirror, it sticks like frost over it, and I see tiny little bubbles appear on the surface. I fear that something in me, something in my saliva perhaps, a poison I caught from the attack of that little beast, has turned into some acid, something capable of great destruction. Simply thinking about what it might be doing to my insides is making me double over in pain. I'm breathing raggedly, but I have to get a hold of myself. I need to stand up and deal with the experiment on the loose, now. I use the medical supplies to clean, disinfect, and cover up the wound on my neck as well as I possibly can under the circumstances. But as I'm about to finish, a new transformation assaults me unexpectedly. It begins with a chill down my spine. But then, my whole body is seized in a convulsion that I swear rattles every last one of my bones. It's over as quickly as it started, but when I go back to handle the bandage on my neck, I flinch as soon as my fingers touch my skin. Well, they're not my fingers anymore. My nails! They've sharpened, doubled in length, and expanded in width at least tenfold. The sight of these talons on my fingertips makes me let out a shrill scream. And then I turn to the mirror again, and my face is worsened. I am a monster! I look twice as heavy, with fat hanging from my cheeks and jaw. No! My body! My own body! A poison destroying me from the inside out! I slam my fist on the counter and discover with a shock that the whole thing trembles under my strength, and the surface suffers a small crack. That is far from normal. I should not have this power. I am not myself anymore. I'm not sure I'm entirely human at all. I don't know how much time I have left in this body collapsing on its own. Still, there are a couple things I need to handle before the worst can happen. I rush out of the room and towards a communication booth. What I have to do now won't be easy. Even the simple act of taking myself across the length of the space station is an inhumane struggle. My legs keep shaking, and I lose my balance too many times to count. I can barely breathe, and I have no idea if it's just a strain, or if the venom is making my lungs give out on me. All my clothes feel too tight on me, including my shoes, causing me great discomfort, that then erupts into pure terror when I hear a tear on my shoes, and I look down to see that my toenails have evolved, just like my fingertips, and now there are massive, ugly, sharp claws bursting out of my white boots. I scream and rush forward as fast as I can. Physical and emotional pain blur in my head until I hardly know who I was at the beginning. When I finally burst into the comms room, my tragic mission is clear. I clear my throat, ignore the burn I feel inside, and push the right button to send one last message back to Earth. Hello, I am Dr. Mary Ann Crain. I am the scientist on duty at the Hephaestus. It is the 93rd day on board the space station. A terrible accident has occurred. I'm afraid the experiments have been compromised, and I don't think I'm going to make it out alive. Shit. I flinch away from the control panel. Delivering the news made my voice crack with an inevitable sob, but the tears that fell from my eyes, much like my breathing in front of the mirror, hit the metal surface in front of me with a wet splat, a greenish color, and tiny bubbles eating away at some millimeters of the metal. I hope the damage is not too bad. I don't consider to stop and see if the skin on my face is falling off. I keep crying, and I keep talking. This day, one of the experiments from the animal lab went loose. I haven't been able to access the laboratory or capture the specimen to properly identify what went wrong. My guess is that finally something clicked. Something in the conditions I determined for one of the containers did the opposite of killing the subject. The rat gained enough strength to break free from the container. And it attacked me. Oh god. The subject displayed increased strength, size, speed, and venom. The creature's bite was poisonous. I know because I was bitten. This venom is inside me, and the effects on my body, they're going to destroy me. Jesus Christ. This is horrible. I am a horror. I'm not just crying anymore. As I talked, I was wrecked by violent coughs that ripped drops of blood from my lungs and out my mouth to every surface in front of me. The blood, mingled with saliva, is a terrifying mixture of white, sickly green, and deep red droplets that immediately start boiling upon hitting the hard ground. The liquids bubble over, hiss, and send thin trails of smoke upwards as they eat through a full inch of metal of the ship. A primal scream breaks me open before I remember I'm still recording. To stop myself from yelling until my throat splits in half, I shove a hand inside my mouth, and my instincts kick in. Something animalistic and mindless that wasn't a part of me a day ago. I bite down. I sink my teeth down hard on my own hand. My mouth fills with blood, and I feel it boiling still inside me. I've never known a pain like this before, but the venom has reached my brain and made me hungry. I'm a beast, ripping through the tendons and muscles of my own limb. I groan like a caged, wounded animal, and finally let go of myself. My ears fill with the sound of blood splattering all around me, bones cracking, and my own heavy breathing. I sniffle, attempt to get a hold of myself, and finish my message. I'm sorry. Please send my apologies to the entire program on Earth. Tell my family I love them. And I miss them. And I tried my best. I swear, I tried my best. When you get this message, don't attempt a rescue mission. Immediately order the destruction of the Hephaestus. This virus must be eradicated. This venom must be vanished. No other human being should be subjected to this suffering. Goodbye. My frail voice drifts off at the end, and I shudder. I'm clutching my wounded hand to my stomach, and remembering my swollen face, I expect to see my entire body enlarged and heavy. But the sight I get is so frightening that I fall down to my knees. My bloodied hand is now drenched in something else. It's my own skin. There's a hole on my suit, burnt around the edges, and the skin of my stomach is melting off. It's spilling all over my hand. It's coming off in a steady stream, and my body is thinning out second by second. I watch, with my lips parted, as I struggle to get air into my lungs. But as soon as I catch sight of my own ribs, white and exposed, I faint again. For all I care, I should have died of fright right there and then. However, a movement wakes me up. At first, I think the station is breaking down around me, tilting over and falling down a hungry black hole somewhere deep in space. It takes me a minute to convince my eyes to slowly blink open. That's when I realize it's not the ship crumbling down. It's me. My body is moving. Correction, my body is being dragged down the floor of the space station. My first instinct is to just cry it out in frustration. I'm tired. So tired. And I can't imagine enduring any more pain in this lifetime. But regretfully, I have to admit, I am still alive. With no small amount of pain, I raise my head to look down at my body. I'm lying down on my back, and an unnaturally large rat is dragging my body down the hall. The mutant animal has its jaws locked on one of my ankles and is tugging me away like its life depends on it. At first, I entertain the thought of letting it happen. I don't want to fight it. I'm going to die today, one way or another. Let this monstrosity I created kill me, if my body doesn't eat itself first. Or NASA will receive my message and make this whole thing explode with my agonizing body still warm inside. I'm more than ready to die, I think. Except, my head snaps up again, and this time I don't look at the rat dragging me around like a rag doll. No, my focus is on my body. My intact torso, my healed hand, and my human nails. Something inside my brain breaks when I try to understand that this entire thing could have been a hallucination, and that I had told everyone on Earth to kill me for no reason whatsoever. Luckily or not, there are a few confirmations that even if I might be insane, the horrors my body experienced were not unreal. My white suit was torn and burnt in the center, showing off my not unblemished stomach. Just like my hand, the skin is there, but the surface is littered with thin, white, sinuous scars all over. My nails are shaped like regular human nails, but my boots are still torn, and the nails are an unnaturally dark gray color. As if all of this wasn't enough, there were countless stains all over my hands, my suit, my entire body. All the blood, the disgusting green of the poison flooding my insides, and some unreasonable light brown that almost makes me throw up as I consider it as the color of the skin that melted off of my body a while ago. This was real. This terror, this suffering, this cruelty of my body turning against me was real, and I was staring down at the culprit. You! I yell at the top of my lungs, aggressively enough to make me cough up blood all over again. You ruined me! I scream and kick with all my might at the rat clinging its teeth to my ankle. I have to hit it at least half a dozen times before the animal winces loudly and lets me go. That little monster rolls around in pain for a moment before turning around to face me. But it's too late for it. I had dragged myself up to my knees so I could look down at the wretched demon. You ruined me! I repeat, and when the rat lunges at me, I fight right back. I'm the monster that created this creature, and I am clutching in my hands the monster that infected me with its venom. And I know that monsters do not get to live to tell the tale. The rat fights against my hold, but if it wants to break free, it's going to have to tear my fingers off one by one. I look around and realize where I was being dragged to. We are right in front of the animal lab, and I see the room has been converted into a dining room of this monstrosity. The floor is littered with the half-eaten bodies of all the other rats from the experiment. The sight is revolting. The blood, the little organs, the bones, and the hair covering the ground and forming little morbid lumps of dead meat. The scent is indescribable. Pure and absolute death. This time I don't want to throw up. This time I want revenge. I scream again and again as I take the grotesque rat that bit me, and I proceed to slam it as hard as I possibly can on the floor. I use all my muscles, all my strength, natural and a product of my contaminated organism. I hit the animal against the floor so many times I lose count, so hard my arms hurt, and I scream so much my voice gives out. Even after the rat stops breathing, and the only sound is my ragged breathing and the sound of a limp body spilling blood as it hits the ground. I'm exhausted, and when I can't go on anymore, I feel tempted to just fall down beside my monster and wait for any kind of death to take me. But in a day when my body was corrupted, and my worst nightmares came alive on my flesh, I needed one last act of power and proof that I am still myself, capable of making my own decisions and ordering my body to carry me around. So I wiped the splattered blood off my face. I pushed myself up to my feet, and I stopped walking. I ignore my bone trembling as an omen of a new change in my nails, perhaps my teeth this time, turning into abominable fangs that spill out of my mouth messily. I ignore the feeling of my body drying up, the air getting sucked from my insides, the skin sticking to my body. Despite all the horrors I endured, my body successfully carries me out into the dock of the station. I feel alive, and surprisingly certain of my movements and choices as I ignore all the alarms, the rules, and common sense. I take a deep breath, open the last gate, and let myself go. As my conscience starts to leave me, I experience a death much less painful than the last few hours of my life. I feel nothing but content to be floating out here alone, safe and weightless.